Let's talk about the Cowboys, because I've noticed something on social media, and I even noticed it, years ago with Dallas Cowboys fans when it comes to their quarterback. Whether you're talking about Romo before Dak, or obviously Dak right now, Cowboys fans are hard on their quarterbacks. Have we actually talked about who Cowboys fans have been more critical of, Dak or Romo? Do you think the Cowboys fans were more critical of Romo or Dak? Because they were really critical of both. They've been really critical of both. The Cowboys fans, I would say even half Cowboys fans have not liked either of their last two starting quarterbacks.
I feel like Cowboys fans have been more critical of Romo, but he was also more loved. So it went both ways.
Got more love than Dak.
Ceiling was higher.
Less of the middle ground.
Yeah, that's a good point. You could add that. But yeah, I could see that. Because Romo I remember being a Romosexual and people being very critical of Romo at the time. Like that Romo was basically inadequate. Was an inadequate starting quarterback in the NFL. And the point I want to get to is that the Cowboys have really kind of put their fans in this position. And I'll kind of break down, where I'm coming from. I believe the Cowboys, because of their bad organizational habits, and one of their bad organizational habits is they don't draft a lot of quarterbacks. They just have not throughout the years. They just don't operate like that. Since 1999, they are tied for the fewest quarterbacks drafted in the NFL since 99. They don't draft a lot because they've actually been really lucky, considering that that essentially kind of general manager malpractice, in my opinion, by drafting so few quarterbacks over that 2 decade plus time span. And because of that, they have almost lucked and Forrest Gumped and stumbled their way into starting quarterbacks and franchise quarterbacks. And most franchises would probably be in a worse place right now if they had approached the quarterback position so irresponsibly like the Cowboys have. But the Cowboys, in my opinion, are the luckiest team in the NFL the last 2 decades plus when it comes to the quarterback position. They just have been really lucky. Think about it. They had an undrafted free agent become a franchise quarterback. That's happened how many times? Twice in the modern NFL. Maybe Kurt Warner and Warren Moon. It just doesn't happen very often, an undrafted free agent becoming a franchise quarterback. Starting quarterback, yes, but not a franchise quarterback where you're building and constructing the whole organization around, face of your team. And then you go look at Dak, and Dak was a happy accident. Well, they didn't expect Dak to be a starting quarterback. They drafted him in the 4th round. He ended up being behind Kellen Moore. Tony Romo gets hurt because he's fragile. He gets hurt, and then Kellen Moore gets hurt, and then the happy accident. He's Viagra, right? They thought it would be a heart medication. Turns out it also helps erectile dysfunction. You know what? It works better for erectile dysfunction. Let's go with that. That's Dak. They didn't expect him to be, the franchise quarterback, but he was doing pretty well in 2016. They decided, let's go with Dak. And, it's fine. I think they actually have found themselves a franchise quarterback. So I'm not a Dak hater, and I'm not a Romo hater. I actually like both of those guys. I'm just kind of getting at to the root and the genesis of the vitriol that some Cowboys have for Romo and or for Dak. There's a great Chris Rock bit. Second Chris Rock reference on the show today. Great Chris Rock bit. And you guys might remember this. He's talking about, and I don't agree with the Chris Rock bit, so ladies, don't get mad at me. But he's talking about why women in relationships and in marriages complain a lot. And one of his takes is that your woman is complaining a lot. She's always unhappy, and she's always frustrated, and she's always criticizing you because you're not her first choice. Simple. Right? You weren't her first choice. She had some other guy that, she messed that up, and she's probably thinking about him, and you were the guy she settled on, and that's why she's always complaining about you. That's Cowboys fans. I believe Cowboys fans believe they settled on Dak and settled on Romo. They never had the prince that was promised because the Cowboys never draft a prince that was promised. Last one was Troy Aikman. Right? They don't draft quarterbacks really high so that the fans can, the quarterbacks can ingratiate themselves to the fan base, and then you have the projections, and then you'll have the predictions about when's this guy gonna ascend to being the franchise quarterback. You haven't really had that timeline with Cowboys fans. They're almost kind of shocked and awed by, this guy ends up being our quarterback. And I think some Cowboys fans believe they settled on Dak and they settled on Romo. That they never went out of their way as a franchise to prioritize quarterback and go draft or acquire what they believe is the best quarterback possible. And maybe there is some, there could be some credence to that argument that the Cowboys, their organizational habits, one of them being that they don't draft enough quarterbacks, has really had a psychological effect on the fan base. In a sense, it's gaslit the fan base a little bit about the quarterback position.
Well, and around them, the Philadelphia Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round when they already had Carson Wentz.
Yes, exactly. You got
like you can take a quarterback if you have a quarterback that maybe has a ceiling.
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles.
They drafted Nick Foles.
Right. You can actually draft a quarterback who may actually be better.
Yeah,
which I think is what pragmatic Cowboys fans would say. Like Romo was a
miracle,
and he developed into a great player. But was he the best you could do? I mean, because people would then I've been on the radio the entire time that this was going on. Both these quarterbacks in the fair. Well, if you're going to get rid of Romo, who are you going to get? Well, you can draft people along the way because they might get better. You might find the one. Same time, you're right. To go back all the way to Troy Aikman was the first pick of the draft, and the can't-miss quarterback. That is the last time they've drafted a quarterback that high, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
They just don't draft them high, and they don't draft a lot.
Well, and who was in charge? That was Jimmy Johnson.
And then Parcells is Romo.
And Parcells had
it was Sean Payton,
right.
That kind of thing. Yeah, but that still wasn't Jerry Jones necessarily.
Well, because Parcells, when he got there, brought Vinny Testaverde with him, and then he got Drew Bledsoe to try to man the ship, and then Romo emerged out of that and became, because I think Romo's probably more loved than Dak because Romo played on some really bad teams. Romo kind of carried some really not very talented Cowboys teams.
I could see that.
If you remember. Dak Prescott came in and kind of took over a really talented team.
O-line was already built.
O-line was built. Zeke was in his prime. There came into his prime.
Dez, Jay Witt.
Yeah, they had some good squads. And now Dak is seen as the reason they can't get through San Francisco, right? They can't get through the divisional round. We got everything else, and whether this is true or not, it's you.
Dak's holding us back.
Dak's our ceiling, and then this is the conventional wisdom. Now again, if in 2014, which was the Cowboys' best, 2014 is the best Cowboys team since this team.
Yes,
on paper.
Agreed. That's the Dez catch.
The Dez catch, not catch agreement.
Yeah.
They win that game, who knows? Romo's storyline might have been different because they may have gone to the Super Bowl that year. That team had 8 Pro Bowlers, 5 or 6 All-Pros.
And that was Romo's best year.
Yeah, DeMarco Murray led the NFL in rushing that year.
Romo was an MVP conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And so we'll see. Dak this year's got a lot of pressure. I mean, there's no question about that. This is his time. The spotlight is on him. And the team and the coach have made it pretty clear. Like, we'll go as far as he takes us.
Yeah, and that's why they let Mike McCarthy call the plays now, because last year they think Dak may be regressing. The fear is that he's regressing.
Well, that's the 15 picks, and I think there's a sense in the organization they want to play the style of play they did when Dak was out. The Cooper Rush 4-1 record, where they played low-scoring games, let the defense win the ball game, don't make mistakes. Because if you have a great defense, and the Cowboys on paper, elite defense, you don't need a great offense. You need an offense that's good enough. You just don't need to screw it up.
Yeah.
You don't need great.
Low risk.
It's kind of like the Chiefs, right? Your offense with Patrick Mahomes is always going to be elite. And with Andy Reid. Your defense doesn't have to be great.
Just don't be a liability.
It's got to be good enough.
Yeah.
It's got to be good enough.
Don't be a weakness.
And so the Cowboys, that's their argument in a league that's more and more offensively driven. We'll see. But it's going to come down to number 4. It's going to come down to number 4.
Last stat here before we close out the conversation. The Cowboys, I'm sorry, Cowboys fans, for this stat. I know it's going to put you in a bad mood. Cowboys are the only franchise with 2 quarterbacks to play in 3 or more divisional round games without winning 1.
Ouch.
You just don't. And that's Romo and that's Dak.
Yeah, well.
Sorry, Ty. Ty was upset now.
Yeah, well, he's never seen a winner.
Exactly. But they keep. That was that. If you think as a Cowboys fans, man, this seems to be. It seems like we're cursed. It just seems like there's a lot of pain, a lot of suffering that we always get to the same point, and we can't get past it. Then you are right. That has never happened in the NFL in its history where a team with 2 quarterbacks gets to that same point so many times, and yet neither one of them can overcome.
Well said. And, of course, one was an undrafted free agent. The other, a 4th-round pick that was kind of an afterthought on the draft board for the Cowboys that year. Those have become your franchise QBs in Dallas.